Okay, we are live. Welcome everyone to the Quantum Zen Online Dharma Talk. I guess this would be, we're in March already. Our first one was in January. And this is our second one. I think we're going to try to do this monthly, but you know how it goes. Things happen. So this is our second Dharma Talk live stream. The way it's going to work is we have Danielle with us. Hello, Danielle. Thank you for
Hi.
being here. Is it Danielle Alpher? Is that how you say the last name?
That's right. You got
Okay.
it.
I don't think I've ever heard it, but I just took a guess.
Mhm.
Danielle will be giving an opening talk, and I will be answering questions. So during the talk, at any time, if anybody who's on chat, I see some people who are already, let us know in the chat where you are living. If a question pops in your mind, you can always put it into the chat. I read everything in the chat, and we can go over it a little bit later. So Danielle, let's see. I guess the first thing that I don't know about you, I know you live at the Providence Zen Center, and you're also the director of the Providence Zen Center, but also you're very active in Quantum Zen Online and throughout the Quantum School of Zen Americas. Um, what I don't know about you is when did you start practicing in the Quantum School of Zen, and how did you get exposed to it?
All right. Well, hi, everybody. As Jason said, my name is Danielle Alpher, and I practice at the Providence Zen Center. I'm also the director there. I am not a full-time resident there. I do have a room and I stay as much as possible, but I do also have a husband and two dogs and a
Hmm.
house. So I split my time, and actually right now I am in Texas, believe it or not. So I'm nowhere near PZC,
Texas.
but the phone is always attached to my head regarding something about PZC or the school. So I found PZC in March of 2022. So I started practicing in the school back then. Basically, I was a person who I'm a yogi. So I've done meditation
Oh.
attached to my yoga practice. I've been a yogi since the early 2000s. Uh, but I was more always about the postures. I flirted a little bit with
Mhm.
meditation, like sitting meditation, proper sitting meditation. But then in 2022, and I had been going on like yoga retreats twice a year for like 10 years, but then COVID hit and I couldn't go anywhere.
Mm.
And I was itching to practice with people and get out there, but still everything was like closed or restricted or so I read a book by Rupert Sheldrake, who did some studying on morphic resonance and how the universe has universal consciousness. And in this book, he was talking about natural healers and, being with plants, being in nature, grounding, all sorts of things like that. And chanting with people was
Mm.
one of the things in his book that was a natural healer. So I said, where can I chant? So I went over to Google and asked the Google, where is chanting near me? And it sent me to PZC.
Really? Chanting near me? That's interesting. I
Yep.
would have thought to type that in there. And PCC came up. That's interesting, huh?
And the kicker was I've lived within 25 miles of PZC since like 1990. And
Wow.
I couldn't even believe that it was in my backyard all that time.
Yeah. I've heard that before, and it's interesting because it's been there for so long. And I thought like everybody in the area knew it, but there's even people who live nearby. It's like, oh, I didn't know there was a Zen center there. So, oh, that's very interesting. I think I remember hearing a little bit about this now that you're saying that. So, anyways, it's
Yeah.
good to have you here. Thank you for being here. And go ahead, Danielle will share some words with us. Again, welcome everyone to the Quantum Zen Online Dharma Talk. I see Roddy from Naples, Florida. Uh, Danbury is here from England. Good to see you. Michael from Warsaw. And B-Bone 6 from New Haven, Connecticut. Good to see you all. And again, Daniel will say a few words and I will answer questions afterwards. Feel free to put comments or questions in the chat during the talk. And if you haven't already, let us know where you're living. Gary, hey, Gary. We know Gary. Gary from here. Gary Belanger. All
Oh,
right, Daniel.
Gary.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Gary. I usually don't see him very much, but once in a while, like events like this, I see him. So good to see you all. All right, Danielle, what do you would like
Yes.
to share with us?
Well, I mean, you actually gave me a great start. It's PZC and the practice has been such a great addition to my life. Um, you know, so chanting is my number one practice. Sitting is I like to sit too and go on retreats, but chanting is what grounds me and what connects me too with the others that I'm practicing with. Um, I guess I can say, as I was saying to Jason, as we were getting ready to hit the live button, you come to these talks with an idea of what you're going to say, and then this talk starts and poof, it's gone. But really, I can just speak from my direct experience, and my direct experience is that I'm really grateful. Practice has instilled in me uh, gratitude. It has given me kind of the tools and the skills to kind of slow down. I have Nancy Hedgepeth in the back of my mind. How is it just now? When the mind is going on all the different things. Jason, you mentioned that I'm pretty active in the school, director of PZC, so there's always something going on at PZC, and then I work with Kuzo, and I sit on the development committee for the Quantum Americas, and there's so much happening at pretty much any given time. And when I get to the point where I don't know, what's next, it's just, how is it just now? What can I do? How can I help? And that's kind of the biggest takeaway that one of the biggest takeaways that I, put in my daily practice. It's it helps me remain focused and keeps my center, because otherwise I could just get knocked off center pretty easily, or because there's so many different things coming at me, whether it's in my work or on the news, that TV box that we all have in our living rooms, and when that thing is on, oh my God, it can get wild. But the bottom line, it's, how is it just now? What is happening right now? um I'm also grateful for being able to attend the retreats at PZC. Um, I like to sit the YMJJs to carve out that time in a busy schedule to sit and just, process and digest my karma or whatever I'm dealing with, at that, or even others. It's the practice has helped quite a bit too with just dealing with conflict, or where there are everybody's got opinion. I was just on a conference call about an hour ago. We have some stuff happening at PCC, and it's collecting a lot of opinions. We should do this, we should do that, well, how about this, how about that? And being able to keep a strong center and kind of focus on how is it just now, what are we trying to accomplish right now, what's in front of us. That that definitely helps me bring real things in, and then be able to, be the leader as the director to move forward with clear direction, and bringing others into um, that clear direction, if that makes sense. Um, One of the other things too about practice for me is the idea of impermanence. Um, my dad passed last May, and the last 3 years leading up to that, he was on dialysis for a number of years. And I witnessed that suffering. And then he had a kidney transplant. And by way of the doctors, it was a successful transplant. But in everyday life, watching him after the transplant, he actually, he clearly went downhill, and it was a lot of suffering for that last year. Um, and and I was suffering too, because I was seeing my parents suffer. And the practice helped me process that, like, kind of not hold on to the suffering and not focus on it, or go down any bad spiral because of it. And and the whole process was a lesson in impermanence and non-attachment. Impermanence, in that I saw my dad, one minute he was here, and then poof, he took his last breath, and that was it, gone, poof. And then also, like, sitting in the house and seeing all the stuff around, like his items, his possessions, and poof, now that person who was attached to that item just isn't there. And really nobody else in the world has the same attachment to such an item. It put into perspective just the whole idea of things, stuff, attaching to anything. um it's we're here for a short time. It's things to me mean less. I mean, the older I get, the less things mean also. Like, when I was younger, an item or a possession might have a particular feeling about it or an idea about it. Now it's so funny. I don't need anything. I just need a little bit of food and a roof over my head and a blanket. But yeah, it's the practice has helped me process that stuff and digest it, as the term we use in the school is digest it. And then also see how I respond to things differently now that I do have this practice, because I can put down even my own um, like sadness or anger or frustration. I see in myself, I'm much better at just, like, letting it happen, letting it be, letting myself feel it, but not attaching to it and holding on to it, and then, carrying it forward to whatever my next task is. It's been amazing how it has helped me, and I can see it in myself. I feel it in myself, and then I see how it has um, passed on to the others around me. In that, like, if I'm in a better state, I can bring myself to a situation in a better state, which then also helps the situation. I'm not bringing any of my own, like, bunched up frustrations, anger, sadness, or any of those emotions. I am able to, mostly, sometimes anyway, put that stuff down and proceed with a clear mind. What I love about our school is that it is, the whole idea of don't know. To me, like, don't know is completely liberating. If I can sit in don't know and not be sure that I have an answer, it means that really anything is possible. And I like that, because then truly the world is my oyster and our oyster, for all beings. And we can kick into that curious mind and just ask questions, or even and conclude something together, or even just sit in silence and accept what is at the time. I had a consult with Tim Colhan yesterday, and we were talking about don't know and conflict resolution, and basically if you keep it open, your mind open, and then we're able to come to the table to talk through something, that's great. It gives us the opportunity to do that. No, if we keep our preconceived notions at the door, then and come to a discussion with an don't know mind, then we can be open to anything. And then Tim said, he goes, or we can just sit silently and not have talking. And I said, you're right. Thank you for that, because it isn't, you don't always have to be talking. Talking, as he reminded me, is making things. So yeah. What else can I say? I'm thrilled to be here. It's an honor to work for the school and contribute as I do. Together action. Yeah, it's chanting and together action for me. Those are the 10 retreats. The treats. I love the structure of the retreats. The fact that the schedule is the master. I don't have to think about anything. Just follow that schedule and try not to take a job at a retreat. Sometimes I end up being work master, so I have to think, but otherwise it's been great. Maybe I'll pause now, Jason.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing all of that. Yeah, you and I were talking about PZC before we went live. Also sparked up a lot of things for me, because I lived there for a long time, but not as long as some others have in the very beginning. But it's probably 10 or 11 years, maybe a little bit more. The first stage, I think it was, about 10, and then I came back to PZC. But yeah, that practice of together action, I really appreciate. So you're talking about being grateful for these practices, and that is really probably the strongest one for me. By the way, welcome everyone to the Quantum Zen Online Dharma Talk. I see, Varda from Israel. Good to see you here. I'm glad you're here. Also, if you have any questions about anything that came up in Danielle's talk or something that's been on your mind, just go ahead and put it in the chat and I will try to respond to that. But yeah, the something about the together action that I found the most valuable, because it's something that we can take with us no matter what our situation is. You noticed, you mentioned conflict at the Zen Center, but anywhere you have human beings, there's conflict. And I think sometimes there's this idea I remember when I was housemaster at the Providence Zen Center, and I was giving a tour to somebody and showing them the Zen Center, and we're meeting some residents. But there were 2 residents who were fighting. They were just arguing back and forth, yelling. And this person looked at me and goes, well, I thought the Zen Center is supposed to be peaceful and clear and compassion. I said, yeah, it is sometimes. But it's not the reality of it. Something I noticed, well, the first, obviously, wherever you have human beings, there's going to be conflict. There's going to be people bumping up against each other. But that's the very reason why Zen Master Sung Song really promoted together action. So Danielle mentioned our retreats. So we eat together, we sit together, chant together, bow together. When I was in Korea and some other Zen centers like Empty Gate Zen Center in Berkeley, we even slept in the same room. It's like you're with these people all day long. And there's something very valuable about that, because his intention was, you're supposed to bump up against each other. That's the point of it. Because if you look at this world, that's what you'll see wherever you look. I'm only seeing where I live, or the United States, but God, look all over the world. It's crazy what's happening. And it has been since human beings started spending time together. So there's that initial conflict, and which is great because we get to see what we're holding. So Danielle mentioned this word holding. Zen Master Sung Song had this teaching, and I don't remember the exact order of it, but I liked what he said. And the first he said, don't make anything. So you'll hear that often in Zen. but it's impossible to do that sometimes. But making something just means there's the truth of what's in front of us, and then there's what we make of it. We add our narrative, we add our opinions, our likes and dislikes, our strong views, beliefs, whatever it is. So we call that making something. But he said, well, if you make something, don't attach to it. So Danielle mentioned attachment. What is attachment? That just means we're putting energy into our thinking or our feelings. It means we're holding on to it or grasping it. He said, well, if you do attach, though, then don't check yourself. And that's really hard for many of us. It's, we don't need, we check other people. And the reason why we're usually checking other people means we're checking ourselves. And that's judging us. Like, oh, I can't believe I did that. How could I do that? I've been practicing Zen for so long and I still am doing this. It's called checking. It doesn't have any clear, helpful purpose. But it's good to see, because he said, well, I guess if you're checking yourself, don't hold anything. And that's really, I think, the most important, because it's the holding that kills us. So even if we do attach to something, like doing together action, we hold on to something. And, during retreats, it's happened many times. That person's moving around so much, or they're breathing so loud. How come the head Dharma teacher doesn't say anything? There's all this stuff that we're making in our minds, checking and attaching. But this is good, because what I noticed most of the time living in a Zen center that might be different from other living situations is most people are trying to make an effort not to hold it. And that's really important, because that's where we can actually start to digest our experience. So Danielle mentioned this word, digesting. I love that word. It's like if you eat food, the food, you swallow it down, your stomach breaks it up, and then it's digested and turns into energy. So the food becomes energy. And it's the same way with our feelings, our thoughts, our experiences. If we're not holding them, now we may attach to them, but if we're not holding them, if we just let it be, I guess you can call it letting go. I like to say, just don't touch it. Just let it be. Then we can digest those experiences. So even the things that are very difficult can be digested and turned into energy and wisdom. It's pretty amazing. The forest at the Providence Zen Center. Do you walk in the woods, Danielle? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's a different experience between the forest here where I live, the redwoods. It's like very clean trails and like very tall, beautiful trees. It's very lovely to look at. But I remember walking around the Providence Center, especially like late fall or early winter, and I saw all the rotting things around. Like there's broken branches, the leaves are decaying, and they have a certain smell to them. It seems like it's ugly, right? But what I learned about that forest is, like, I don't know what percent, but somewhere around 80 to 85% of the energy the forest gets is from dead matter. I thought that's just so cool. It's the same way with these very difficult experiences that we have, thoughts, feelings. If we digest them, those things become energy, but also becomes wisdom. And from together action, this is where we learn about wisdom. I think there's this innate compassion that we already have. That means really truly having a connection with someone else. I know sometimes there's a saying, put yourself into someone else's shoes, but it's like an experience of the raw sensations that human beings have, whether that's fear, anger, sadness, any of those things. But sometimes we don't know what to do. Tim mentioned, like, maybe sometimes it's good to keep your mouth shut. That's also what I'm grateful and love about Zen practice is there's no formula to any of these things, right? There's no book about how to live life. I wish there was, you can just write it out and hand it out and we just follow that, but it's just not like that, because every situation is different. Also, even if the situation is the same, our relationship to what's happening or the person in front of us is different. So that means how we respond may be different. So we have no idea what to do. But that's a great thing. This is why we practice Kongan practice, is to really embrace don't know. I don't know how many of us could truly embrace and rely on don't know. To me, it's like these exercises where you stand up and there's a person behind you and you fall back and they're supposed to catch you. Have you ever done that? Oh man, I remember I couldn't do it. I can't remember. It was somewhere in my 20s. We were doing this exercise at work, and I just did not trust the person behind me. They're not going to catch me. I feel like it's almost the same with really embracing or falling back into don't know. I think we rarely do that because there's some fear about that. I'm not sure what it is. For everybody, it's different. But if we can truly just fall back and embrace don't know, then something appears. Not only does the truth appear clearly, but what we need to do in the moment becomes very clear. So this is like I guess in Buddhism is called skillful means, and this is why we have Kongan practice. It really helps with the skillful means, this wisdom part. That can take some time. Because maybe sometimes in a situation it means don't open your mouth. Maybe sometimes it means opening your mouth. Maybe it's just giving a hug. Or maybe you're just listening. There's no formula to this. And the more we really embrace not knowing, the more we start to trust not knowing. And that means we start to trust ourselves, which means we start to trust this moment because we're not separate from this moment. So thank you for sharing that, Danielle. It's wonderful. Anybody have any questions or comments? I think I read whoever is here right now. See, we got Roddy, Danbury, Michael, BB Bones, Gary, and Varda. And August. Thanks, Danielle and Jason. Very helpful. Good. Glad to hear that.
Jason, I have a question.
Sure.
So what was it like living at the Zen Center versus not? Can you talk a little bit about like how is practice even just in a Zen Center versus not in a Zen Center?
It's hard. It's very hard. It's challenging. It's been a little while now. I mean, just like everything, it seems like it was so long ago, but actually wasn't. So when did I move out? I had an interesting kind of situation because I moved out of Providence Zen Center into Empty Gate Zen Center, but Empty Gate Zen Center is not residential. We have a caretaker, or at least when I moved there, I started the caretaker, I guess, job or position where somebody's there kind of watching over the building and taking care of it. But I moved to Empty Gate in 2009. And then later, I guess, 2012, moved back to Providence Zen Center in a different context. So also the context was different. When I was originally living at the Providence Zen Center, I was a monk. Or was training as a monk for a little bit and then became a novice and then a full bhikkhu. And then I moved to Empty Gate Zen Center as a monk and then eventually disrobed. And then 2012, I moved back to the Providence Zen Center, but now I'm a layperson with a newborn. So talking about craziness too. I mean, there's always again, I mentioned the conflict of the Zen Center, which there always is. And then there was the situation of just not having any sleep, like having a newborn and trying to do all of that. It's very, very challenging. One thing, Kendra and I, so Kendra's my wife, that she lived at the Cambridge Zen Center for 5 years. So she also had this kind of residential experience. One thing we really loved, and it may be obvious about the Zen Center, is the support for practice. Like it's happening all the time. And it just kind of gets you out of bed. I know there's these requirements and things like that, but there's just something about living at the Zen Center and noticing and knowing that, wow, practice is happening and having that support. So when I moved to Berkeley, an Empty Gate Zen Center, I was by myself. There wasn't practice every day as well. So I decided to make practice every day. I figured if I get up and do something, maybe someone will show up. So I still felt that support and energy, people coming to the Zen Center, living in a Zen Center. All of this kind of form really helps us, encourages us. Practicing with people is wonderful. There's two parts of it. I already mentioned the conflict part, which is very good because we get to see our own mind, we get to digest our experience. But also there's the things that most people experience, just having people to sit with. Every retreat I've done, most of retreats, in the circle talk, I always hear, yeah, if it wasn't for you all, I wouldn't be here, right? Because it's really, really difficult to do on your own. So when let's see, so we were living in the Providence Zen Center with our son, Miles, and then eventually moved back to California. And that was the first time that both of us were not in the Zen Center for a little while. And I felt like I was in a different world, man. It was weird. Just because, there was all of a sudden nothing. The area that we live in is about where we live now is about maybe over an hour drive to Empty Gate Zen Center. So it's not like we could just like a Tuesday evening just drive over there. So having nothing, it was like, luckily for me, I had the experience of doing a 90-day solo retreat. So I had this experience of practicing by myself. And I remember one thing my teacher told me. He only told me two things as advice for the 90-day solo retreat. One of them was don't be a hero, which I thought was interesting. I mean, don't try to samurai through it. Like if you're hurt or something's going wrong, get help. And the second, he said, let the schedule be your teacher, right? Because you have nothing. There's no, first of all, there's no teacher there, but there's no Sangha there to support you. I didn't even have books with me. I had a chanting book. I didn't bring any books or anything. And, I had no computer or anything like that back then. So I was like, only thing that's going to help guide me here is the schedule. So I followed that schedule. So remembering that, like, the schedule is your teacher. So Kendra and I decided to make a schedule. So we made the garage into a Dharma room. We put a little altar there and some mats and cushions and the moktak and all of that stuff. And we made a schedule. And that was really helpful. But there was still the missing part, which is a big part, which was Sangha. So her and I were practicing together, which was very helpful. So this is where, God, what was I doing back then? The timeline's all messed up for me. This is when I started getting involved in online practice. So Empty Gate, when I was living there, we started streaming a couple things, the Wednesday night Dharma talk and Sunday morning practice. And it was a streaming service called Ustream. So we were using that because I was meeting people when I was living in Empty Gate, just from around the world, who didn't have any support for practice. The first person that I can remember was this person from Panama who had no Zen center, no teacher, no nothing. So I invited him to join the stream. So I was doing that for Empty Gate for quite some time. I think I stopped doing it when I moved out of Empty Gate and went to Providence. But when we moved back to California, and then Kendra and I were living like in a duplex by ourselves with no support, I thought, maybe I should bring the streaming back for Empty Gate. So I decided to do Thursday morning practice. And I believe at that time I streamed through YouTube, kind of like we're streaming now, but it's just a morning practice. Because I needed that Sangha support. Even after, doing many 3-month retreats and doing the solo retreat, I just, some people are very good at being self-sufficient and practicing on their own. But I think many of us really need that encouragement and energy to, inspire us to do it. So I figured too, if I'm leading a Thursday morning practice, I got to be there and show up. So it always brought me to showing up. And then eventually, of course, meeting, talking to Kathy and Bobby and all that, they wanted to do this much bigger thing, which created the Quantum Online Sangha. So I think that would be probably the biggest difference. Like, even though the form changes, maybe it's a physical condition, maybe it's a situational change. Like, there's something that we all have at any moment. Okay, what do we have? We have, first of all, the practice. So you mentioned like having these questions, these big questions. Yeah, Nancy always had like, how is it right now? I've been hearing that since 1999. It's like it's never changed, but it's so important. And it's something we have access to no matter what situation we're in. If you're in a Zen center or if you're in the middle of the desert, how is it right now? What is happening right now? And what is my job? So having this is something we can bring anywhere. I think, again, when I talked about don't know, relying on this don't know, that's something that can happen at any place and any time. But like with most of us, delusions appear. We make a vow, delusions are endless. We vow to cut through them all. Endless means in every moment a delusion appears. It's happening right now. How do we see through those delusions, right, is really important. So kind of being honest about ourselves too. Like at that time, I can't remember how long I've been practicing when I moved in this area, but it was quite a while. But just realizing, that I need more support, and showing up, like leading practice or doing these live streams and things like that really helps me, motivates me to continue practice, and just a reminder, because all of this is a reminder. So we already have don't know, we have this great question, we have faith in our true self, hopefully. It's not a belief in our true self, it's this sense that it's already here. We already have those things, but delusions are endless, and sometimes we get lost. And maybe we get lost in a Zen delusion. Everything's clear, this whole world, I'm helping this whole world, right? We need people to reflect our mind back to us. So if you can do that in a Zen center, that's great. But if you're not able to do that in a Zen center, then you have an online option to help reminder. So even if we encourage people to practice every day, why is that? Already we are enlightened, we have enlightened nature, right? We already have this great question. We have the faith in ourselves. We have don't know. So why practice? That's because we forget. Delusions are endless. Oh, yeah. So I practice every day to remind myself, I'm going to continue this practice when I get up off the cushion. So when I go pee, when I make the kids oatmeal, when I drive to the grocery store, when I give a Dharma talk, all of these are reminders. And that's why Sangha is probably one of the most important aspects. I think, was it Mongang that thought that Sangha was more important than a teacher, right? Because it's like, we're all going down this freeway. What is that freeway? What's happening right now? How can I help in this moment? But we go off in the wrong exits all the time, right? And the Sangha always helps us to get us back onto this bus or back on this freeway to remind us of what we're doing. So yeah, name and form has changed, but the intention and action has not changed. John, hey, John, good to see you. We were just mentioning you earlier, actually. Thank you, Danielle and Jason. What is the biggest difference that you noticed in together action online and in-person practice? Danielle, we can take turns on that one. I have my idea about that.
Well, for me, it's the online Sangha reminds me all the time that no matter where I am or what I'm doing, I'm not alone. And I feel like this virtual presence all the time, which is great. It's so that for me, the online Sangha has been amazing. Plus what it has offered for me too is at any moment I can pretty much tune into a Dharma room somewhere, because we're global and we follow the sun. We can tune into a Dharma room who's chanting almost at any given moment. So to me, that's been great. Now, being in the Dharma room at PZC, there's nothing like that. I mean, I get to physically be next to my Dharma siblings and be in the same room as the teacher, and especially when it comes to chanting in a group, there, you know, that you can actually feel it. You can feel it in your body. But I think each situation has brings something to the table for me, and I certainly get something out of it. That's why one of the things that I love about our school is that you have both options no matter what. And I'm lucky because I have PZC. I mean, I have PZC in my backyard, but at any time I can tap into the global Sangha and, you know, chant with people in Singapore or Korea or anywhere in the globe. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'd have to say it's much similar in my experience as well. There's some things that are missing from online. And some of it, like you said, that you feel the vibrations of the chanting, but just like the energy of people being together, like it's really inspiring, to be honest. So I've been in obviously both situations for quite some time. And there's also some things, like subtle things, that are missing from online. For example, I mentioned like you're sitting with people and the person's breathing too hard or they're moving around. Like, obviously you can't get that online, right? Because everyone's sitting in their own environment and situations. And I mean, I've seen some interesting things during online retreats, like people drinking tea during sitting, or the kids running into the room, right? There's all of that. So that can add its own practice, I guess, and well, but yeah, missing some of that together actionness, if that's a word, the subtlety is missing from online. You know, everyone's in a different kind of situation. When I first was participating in the online Sangha, it was mostly people who were in remote locations. Like, you know, they had absolutely nothing near them. But some people had maybe a different Zen tradition near them or a different Buddhist group, things like that. So I would always encourage them to practice with that group. You know, like, yeah, if the Quantum Zen online is your Sangha, you can still practice with other people. And people do that even to this day. I've heard of people practicing with other groups, which I think is great. You know, some have actually started to create their own group, not like a formal meditation group, but they invited some people over to their house, or maybe they can go to a yoga studio or a church and practice together. Like there's opportunities to create that. Yeah, and some people maybe live near a Zen center, and maybe physically they cannot attend, or their life situation is very complicated. I know a person who has 3 jobs and have to take care of their kids, so there's just no time for them to go to the Zen center at all. So an online Sangha is a wonderful thing to take advantage of, to be honest. So I wouldn't say there's anything better or worse. I mean, like, you just have to really look at your own situation and respond to that. And the online Sangha has been a blessing for many people. Hey, Cesare, good to see you here. Hello there. Quick hello from me. All right. Some online Sangha members here. Any other questions or comments before we go? Thank you, John, for that. Oh, you want to say something, Danielle?
Well, so online Sangha and, you know, practicing at the Zen Center. So I recently took my 10 precepts. So I am now a Dharma teacher in training. And I have to say that I am very lucky to be able to attend the Dharma teacher training that's offered through Quantum Zen Online, which now has put me also into like a Dharma teacher training cohort. So I'm not only do I get to mingle with folks online just through practice or chanting or, you know, in that forum, now I'm part of a Dharma teacher cohort that's also on this online community. So it's really good. It's like you join a Zoom and kind of like just joining a retreat, you have a connection with these people based on the topic, and it's it's real, and then I get to supplement that with Dharma teacher training at PCC with the guiding teachers that are there. So it's, to me, it was another example of in our school that we can tap into these two different forums and learn. And it's good because it's open. It just allows more to be available to me as a Dharma teacher in training, because I can tap into both. It's great. It helps because it gives me also two forums to learn in, strictly online, and then also in the Zen Center. It's been good.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of that feedback lately. People from other Zen centers who are participating in online activities, and has really helped develop them as a Dharma teacher or Dharma teacher in training, but also their practice as well. And I noticed one thing that being online that you can't get usually at a physical Zen center is really experiencing that worldwide connection with the quantum school of Zen. Like, I remember sitting Kilches and Providence and thinking, oh, there's a retreat right now going on in Seoul. Oh, there's one going on in Warsaw. Like, just to know that there were other people practicing, but to actually sit, and seeing the screen of all these people from around the world it blows me away every time. And I definitely feel it's interesting now that I'm thinking about this. I actually feel more connected to the school than I did before. Some people, like I know at Empty Gate Zen Center, there's, people then practicing there for a couple of years, but they don't even know what the Quantum School of Zen is. Like, they know the Zen Center. That's where they go to sit. They know the guiding teacher who teaches there. That's their experience. Like, this whole other world, a larger world of like support and content and things we can benefit from. Another thing you probably can't get in person, I lived in the Providence Zen Center, so it was international. A lot of people, a lot of teachers would come, so I got to sit with a lot of teachers. But if your experience is not in a larger Zen center, most of our Zen centers are not very big, to be honest, around the world, especially in the United States, is the access to sit with other teachers and to do koan work with other teachers. I found that to be the most valuable when for me, just in my experience. So, if you go to Empty Gate Zen Center in Berkeley, California, you have two options. Sometimes you'll get Jeff, sometimes you'll get Marshall, sometimes I'm doing stuff online for Empty Gate. But in the online Sangha, usually you'll connect with the teacher and they'll be your guiding teacher, but you have access to so many different teachers, which I find very valuable. And it really helps this kind of digesting part, especially when it comes to just practice alone, but also the Kongan practice. For me, it's really helped clarify it and kind of understand the purpose of all of that. So yeah, you can benefit from all of it. Gary says, thanks, Danielle and Jason. You're welcome. Good to see you. Any last questions or comments before we go? Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you, Danielle, for giving the talk, and thank you all for your questions. Anything else before we go? If you weren't here earlier, the idea is probably to do this at least once a month. And a lot of this has to do with organizing people's different time zones and availability. It could be more, but at least once a month, we would like to do a live stream and connect with people. This YouTube channel, if you haven't already subscribed to that, it's a new channel, and we're still kind of going through how we're going to move forward with it, because it's different. And for the fact that, there's just not one person on the channel. This Quantum Zen Online YouTube channel is to really expose people to our online teachers. When we first started, it was Kathy and me. That was it. And now there's so many more who are active in the online Sangha. So we would like to feature them as much as possible. And also maybe dive in. We'll see how it all goes. I mean, I have a lot of ideas, but also possibly learning more about our teachers. Maybe we've read their bios or see a blog post or a video, but maybe really pick their brain about how they got into practice, how they see practice in today's world, and things like that. Might be interesting. You can always give us feedback, by the way. You can contact me. It's very easy to contact me online at quantumzen.org. You can send me a message. I'm always taking suggestions from people. Danbury, yes, thank you so much. That was beautiful and so helpful. Very good to hear that. Okay, well, I guess that's it. Danielle, again, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
For your talk. It was very helpful. And yeah, stay connected, everyone. Varda says, very inspiring. Thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, stay connected. If you're not getting support, reach out. We're here. Okay, everyone. Have a clear day. Bye-bye.